Well, everybody loves risotto, so let's make some risotto. I was going to make plain risotto, but then when I found a few more items in the refrigerator, I go, why go plain? So this one's going to have some fresh spinach in it, and mushrooms, garlic, onion, parsley, pecorino romano cheese, and of course, the only way to make risotto is with arborio rice, and some white wine, and some fresh chicken stock. Now I'm using olive oil, but don't be like me unless you want to stay away from butter. This dish really should have butter in it, but since I'm eating it, I don't want the butter. So what do we do first? Well, let's just add the, as you can see the way I minced up cut up the mushrooms, and the garlic, and the onions. And we'll save the chopped parsley for later, and the spinach for later. So we'll saute this. And we'll add the arborio rice. Just give this a minute to saute. Okay, they're sweating up nicely. Now we add the rice. Give it a stir. Now the thing about risotto is you can't leave it, so you have to stay with it. But if you're cooking this for dinner, there's a way of doing this. You cook it 3/4 of the way and stop. And then when you're ready to finish it, it'll only take a few more minutes. Now we'll add the white wine. And we're starting off with 1/4 of chicken stock. Can you see how that's gelled? That's made from fresh chicken. And it's so nice, and then you know you have something good. So as we stir, we'll just add a little bit of this at a time. And then I'm going to finish this, which usually you don't do, but I'm going to add a little bit of heavy cream to it. Why? I just love the taste. And the cheese we'll add later. And you have to keep on stirring this as it's cooking. So what's going to happen now? As you're stirring this, it's going to reduce. And you just keep on adding a little more chicken stock to it. Not too much, because we don't want a soupy risotto, but we don't want it stiff either. And if you're going to do this and you don't want to cook it like 3/4 of the way, but you want to cook it and then serve it, well, timing is everything. I set the clock for 20 minutes. So we'll see how long this takes to go from start to finish. That way you know what time you're going to sit down and finish your main course. I like to add shrimp, seafood to this also, but this is what we're doing today. So just keep on stirring this. See how slowly it's cooking? That's just fine. Well, you see how it's reduced and it's cooking, but of course you know it's not done. So let's add a little more stock. And later we have to be careful because we're adding fresh spinach to this. And fresh spinach is maybe 90-something% water, because after you cook it, it cooks down to nothing and you have a lot of liquid. So we're going to have to watch this as we get towards the end, because that spinach is going to add a lot of liquid to this. So just keep on mixing and allow it to reduce. Well, I just added the white pepper not black pepper. Why? Because this dish is kind of white looking. You don't want those black spots in there, even though I like black pepper better. But so we go with the ground white pepper, and I put 1 teaspoon of salt, because Chef Robert Corey knows that we are adding Pecorino Romano cheese, which is a little bit salty, so we want to be careful with the amount of salt we're putting in here. See how nice that's cooking down? And I'm using a non-stick skillet. It just makes life easier. Keep on doing this, and we're going to add another little bit of chicken stock. So now let's just taste the rice. Still very, very firm. We'll add some more chicken stock to this. You just slowly add the item. The next time I add something, I'm going to add a little bit of heavy cream that I'm going to use. We keep on mixing. And so far, I set the timer for 20 minutes, and we have about 8 more minutes to go. We'll see what happens after the end of 20 minutes. You know, when it comes to cooking, you get the basic arborio rice recipe. You can embellish on it. If someone says, well, that doesn't go in there, well, you know what? If the dish finishes and it is deliciosa, then guess what? You can ignore what that person said. What is cooking? Cooking is experimenting. I'm always playing around with dishes, changing recipes. But in the end, this will be a creamy rice dish. Whatever you add to it, it's your choice. I like putting basil in there also. Thyme, oregano. Oh, there are so many things. So it's cooking down, and we're now down to 15 minutes of cooking. Well, we're closing in. It's just 2 minutes later than from when I just stated. So I'm going to add the heavy cream. And a little more chicken stock, because the rice is still very, very hard. So I know I have a little ways to go. More than 20 minutes. And I also like it because it makes it look, it's so nice and white, creamy looking, the heavy cream. Even though traditionally it doesn't go in there. But what the heck, it tastes good. You know what? So that makes right now a half a quart of good chicken stock has reduced into this rice. And I'm guessing right now that that might be enough. So we'll let this cook. Check it in a few minutes. Well, it's been 20 minutes. You could stop this right now, put it off to the side because the rice is still not cooked, and then finish it later, which should take about another 5 minutes. So I have this on a high flame. It's cooking nicely. Looks creamy. At the end of 5 more minutes, the rice should be done, and it should have reduced to a nice consistency. Hopefully. Then I'm going to throw in the cheese and the spinach. And hopefully, see, there's 2 ways I could have added the spinach. I could have cooked the spinach first, the fresh spinach, chopped it up and added it to this. A much safer way of doing it than what I'm going to do, because it's going to give off liquid. But I want the the flavor of the spinach cooked in here. Well, I'll lower the flame. It's looking good. Well, let's just, if that rice is just almost done. That's very close. So what I'm going to do now, and this is after 23 minutes, I'm going to add the spinach and the cheese. I didn't chop up the spinach real fine because it's going to be very small in there anyway after it cooks. And the fresh parsley and the cheese. Fresh parsley. That takes care of everything. The salt and pepper are in there already. And you know, if you were going to add seafood to this, like shrimps or scallops, you would do it right now, because how long does that take to cook? Like 2 minutes, and then you have your seafood risotto dish ready. Now it looks kind of dry, but let's watch what happens after that spinach really cooks. And I'm going to try and keep this green. It's just more appealing to the eye. It's dry, but let's watch what happens when that spinach cooks. I can feel the moisture coming out of it already. Let me check the rice. Almost. Let's cook it slowly for a few minutes. Well, it's been a few more minutes. We're closing in on 30 minutes. We have 28 minutes into this. But the spinach is not giving off as much moisture, so I'm adding another third of a cup of chicken stock to this at the end, because I don't want a dry rice. I want the finished rice to look like this, and the rice is almost done. And it looks nice. I like that spinach in there. And you can taste the spinach. I use baby leaf spinach, not those large stem, heavy stem spinach, which you have to clean, throw the stem out. This is more tender. Very soon. So I'm guessing half hour is just almost close to being done. And we want this, so we're going to add a little more chicken stock. Don't worry, the amounts I've used are already written down. And that was 1 cup of rice, so this makes a nice meal, or side dish, to accompany your main for 4 people easily. Well, it's been a half hour. I'll set the timer for 5 more minutes. Well, I thought it would take no more than a half hour. But you know what? When I cook this, I'll never buy a clock and time it. We just cook it when we're working, and when it's done, it's done. I like that. Taste the spinach. I don't taste the butter. Why? I didn't put any in there. So you do it. You put that butter in there. That rice needs the butter. And that would be 1/4 cup. But what the heck? You don't make this every day for dinner, right? So we'll see how long this takes. So it's at 35 minutes. I added a little more chicken stock, and the rice is just about done. And then I'm making another recipe from this. Rice croquettes. So look for that one, because I'm not eating all of this, so I'm going to turn this into rice croquettes. Fairly easy done. We are done. That is finished, and we'll take a look at it. See how it looks when you pick it up. Nice and creamy, not runny. And there you go. You put it on your plate. Have this with your meat and vegetable. Stay tuned, because I'm turning this into a rice croquette.